everyone. Welcome to Real Dad Speak, a show where real dads share their stories about being present in their child's lives with the goal of raising responsible adults. I am your host, Sarah McClure, and my guest today is Stephen Henry. I met Steve while working at Somerset Mall. He's a security officer there, and I was seeking guests for my podcast, so I asked him if he was a dad. His face changed, and then he told me that his partner had a miscarriage. We talked a little bit more, and I asked him if he would mind sharing his experience going through the miscarriage. He said he would be glad to share it, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So, welcome, Steve. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, by all means, Sarah. I'm glad to finally be a part of the whole experience. So,
Okay. All right. So let me just throw this out here. According
right.
to a March of Dimes article, miscarriage rates vary, but it's estimated that 10 to 20% of known pregnancies end in a miscarriage. However, the actual number is likely higher because many miscarriages occur before the female is aware that she's pregnant. So most miscarriages happen in the first trimester before the 12th week. How did you find out your partner had a miscarriage?
Well, we found out during the second trimester, which this was about 2020. So this is when COVID was like real heavy,
Mm,
and they wasn't letting nobody come in like with anybody else. So it was very difficult. Like even during like all of the ultrasounds and stuff like that, I wasn't allowed to go in, and so I had to sit in the car, uh, while
wow.
she was doing it. So yeah, so it was a lot of FaceTime and stuff like that just to see it and stuff like that. And so it was
Mm,
that part alone was
mm.
difficult, but yeah.
So,
Um, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, so you experienced seeing the ultrasound of baby through FaceTime.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Right.
And so they they was like, yeah, that's your baby. Now, funny thing is that I didn't even know what we were even having, right?
I was gonna
Like for the
ask you that.
longest time. Yeah. And so um it was like I said, like the first few times, I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal, but it's like, I wanted to be there,
Right.
and I'm like, I'm literally just in the parking lot. Like, I don't understand this. Like, we're basically gonna be quarantined anyway. Like, y'all can put the gun up to my head and check my temperature, and I could wear a mask. And I'm like, I'm not really understanding this protocol, but it was ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
So felt a
So
lot of isolation just in that alone.
you didn't know what sex the child was gonna be. Did they give you a due date?
They gave us
Oh.
a due date. I'll let you know when I found out it was a he.
Oh.
Um, so they gave us a due date of, I believe, October 8th through the 10th. I want to say it was the 10th.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. And then you found out that you were having a boy later.
I found that the very day of.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
women deal with miscarriages physically and mentally. So, your support of her may have been needed a little bit longer. Were you able to comfort her with words, or did you just try to physically, or did you do both to comfort her, when you found out?
So let me tell you exactly how that whole thing actually went down. So this whole process, man, was like 3 to 4 days straight. So she was complaining about abdominal pains and stuff like that, and it was because I was staying with my dad at the time, right? And
Mhm.
so I was like, like first time dad, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was happening, so I was like, well, let's try to, because I didn't have my own car at the time, so I could only get transportation whenever I could.
Mhm.
So I was like, all right, well, let me just either try to borrow his car or try to get one of your relatives to come get you so we can take you to the hospital. So keep in mind, nobody else was allowed to go in with her.
Wow.
So every time that she would go there, they wouldn't even hold her long, and they'll just say like, well, just continue to basically like bed rest. And I'm like, well, this ain't helpful, at all. Like this seems very strict. I even well, I was already laid off of work, man, because it was COVID and whatnot. But so that was the first day. But I noticed, man, she was always kicking and moaning and stuff like that. I can clearly tell something was wrong, right? Because we were only 5 months in, right? Maybe five and some change. And
Mm.
so after like the fourth day, because I mean she wasn't even sleeping no more after that. And so I'm like, for me being the man, it's like, I feel like you gotta maintain masculine frame and not show panic and stuff like that. Because the moment you do it, that's when they start to panic. And so I was like, no, everything's gonna be just fine, right? And so I was like, this one seems a little bit more intense now. So I had her mom take her, and I was like, don't leave her side this time. I'm like, she needs somebody to be there for her to advocate, right? So, I'm panicking and stuff like that because I really don't know what's going on. But it was like this gut feeling that something was wrong. And then I didn't hear anything for a long time, right? Because she ended up going to Providence, like right by where the North Line used to be at. And
Yeah.
so anyway, so her water did break, and I was like, nothing in me was allowing me to think the worst, because you know I define the odds even coming into this world. So naturally, my kid would,
Right.
and uh, I ended up getting that call that you know he didn't. It found out it was a he, and he didn't make it, and
Mm.
so
Were you at home by yourself?
yeah, I was, and
Oh,
ironically, because I remember that day vividly. So this was I want to say this was May 8th. This was May 8th. And I really didn't know how to internalize it. I was just there, and I had to find a way, man, to get up there, but then I had to like process it, and it you go through so many emotions and you don't know which one to draw from first. There's
yeah.
anger, there's shock, there's confusion, and then it's not just me, how is she doing, and stuff
Right.
like that. So it was many hours later before I was even able to get up there. And so when I did, of course they are like they didn't even want to let me in, right? Because remember the whole COVID thing, right?
Right.
And so needless to say, I ain't had the best attitude with that. So I told them, I was like, it's either you getting out of my way, man, or you gonna be in the hospital bed right next to her.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's the thing that I really want y'all to zone in on right here. So when I went in there, right, even though it was many hours later, like so it's like nighttime. It's about like 8, borderline like 9 o'clock at night. And
Mm.
so they was still trying to get the placenta out, but they was like using their whole hand and stuff like that. And so I'm looking at this now, I ain't no expert or nothing like that. And I'm like, she's in a lot of pain. I'm like, what's the safer option? So
Right.
they were just saying like the whole vacuum thing, but they didn't care. And you hear these stories all the time, right?
Right.
About them not caring about, our women, women of color and stuff like that. And I mean, I'm not trying to make this a nationality issue, but I mean, we know the stigma surrounding that. And I got to see this in real time. And so I advocated for that. And I was like, no, y'all gonna take her in the back, man, because you causing her a lot of pain. And she's telling you that,
Right.
you know. And so, they did so, and then I held her hand, and I was like, "I'll be here when you get back." And I held him. I mean, he was still in there, even though he was no longer with us. And so, I mean, he was a little long thing. He was probably like, I think he was like 11 inches or something like that. But yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and I could tell he was, mine because I got them sausages, man, for fingers and stuff like that. And he had the same fat toes. And I was like, so I know I'm going off on a tangent. So before I
No,
go
keep
in,
talking. We've
oh,
never
oh,
experienced this, and we just want to know what you
got
felt
you.
at the time. So go right ahead.
So when I was in there, because I was in there by myself, and so eventually I broke down, and I was like, "Well, I'm sorry that I didn't make it in time, son." And I was like, "Well, let me go ahead and tell you who your dad is." So I went into the whole spiel about who it is that I am and what it is that I like. I was like, I'm a nerd. I'm like, man, like I love cartoons and anime, and I do a whole lot of other stuff. And I was like, you wasn't planned at all. I was like, and I can't even say that, I was excited when I first heard about it. However, the more I thought about it, I started to get excited. And so I'm like, it is a honor and a privilege to have been your dad. And technically, he was, he had a heartbeat and he was alive, when he was born. So he did get a birth certificate. So it's not like he was I don't even know what you
Stillborn.
want to call it. Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
like it was even that. He was there, and so I told him I was like, you were definitely born out of love. You wasn't a mistake. You wasn't planned,
right.
but you wasn't a mistake. And so I talked until she came back, which was probably like maybe 40 minutes to like an hour. And so when she came back in, she was already depleted and stuff like that. And so I was like, I don't even know I didn't even know what we were having this whole time. So I was like, I don't know what to name him. And so, after talking with the nurse and stuff like that, like, she was like, well, it was a miracle, he, you know, survived, due to the circumstances. And so he was almost like a guardian angel. And that's when the light bulb clicked, angel. So I
Oh,
was like, yeah, so I'm like, you will take my middle and my last name, but I like that for you. And so that's what we decided to call him. And so
angel.
yeah, and so she held him, and eventually she passed out from exhaustion. So I held him, and I reclined a little uncomfortable hospital chair, and I passed out with him, man, on my chest. And so after that, yeah. So before I go any further, that was the initial uh, moment of me hearing about it and what I ended up doing after I got to the hospital. So
So
if you
how did she find out? I mean, did they take her into the delivery room because the water broke and all that stuff, or did they just examine her and say, "Oh, he's gone"? Did they?
So what ended up happening was, from what she had told me, the moment, because I mean, it was just to the point where she could barely walk because she was having contractions, right? And so uh, the moment after she literally made it into the hospital, she was like she felt a whole lot of water rushing down her leg and it hit the floor and stuff like that. So that was the water breaking, and again, you got to advocate, man, for yourself. And then luckily her mom was there and screaming and telling them and stuff like, hey, she needs to get rushed in the back because it's like a bunch of water coming down on the floor and this woman is pregnant. That ain't a obvious enough hint. So
Right.
you got to do all of this extra stuff to even get attention. So that's what happened with that. So yeah, it's
So they took
it's
her to the delivery room, and
yeah,
he was delivered, and then
yeah. He was breathing, from what she had told me, and he he made a face and he was moving his little arms and stuff like that, and she held him. But then shortly right after that, because the contractions apparently don't stop, even after you give birth. So, you know, went into the whole trying to get the placenta out and whatever else was going on, which I'll go into that part in a second. Um, but yeah, like all of that came as a huge surprise. Like for us, not even knowing the sex of the baby to the reason why this even happened in the first place.
Uh,
So, yeah,
wow.
yeah. Um,
So, so they delivered him, but they didn't cut the cord. I'm not understanding that part. He's delivered,
well,
or
they they
they're trying to deliver him, and his head is out, or and he's breathing, or
so he's delivered already.
okay.
I didn't ask. I'm assuming that the umbilical cord was already cut, but it was
Mhm.
just like I said, the contractions, kept going, and then of course, man, it was the whole, still trying to get the placenta out part and trying to figure out this sharp pain that led her into having them prematurely in the first place, right?
Okay.
Which that was the big number one key into all of this,
Premature.
because yeah, to even lead up into that, man, because she was under a lot of stress for those 3 to 4 days that I had mentioned to you earlier.
Hmm.
So she fibroids, which is common in a lot of women, but definitely through her family. And for whatever reason, right? I guess either they didn't see this in the ultrasound or whatever. And I'm like, every time that she's had this problem, you all had the prime opportunity to at least see that, to see if she was high risk or something like that.
All
More
right.
precautions could have been taken place, to either prevent that or to have the necessary medical help to ensure that she will still be able to deliver safely, you know?
So was she going
So
to the doctor like every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks? When it first started, because
when whenever the doctor's appointments was scheduled, I mean that's when she would go, and I would always
but
either
she went more than 2 or 3 times, right? So they had the opportunity to
oh
examine
yeah,
her.
yeah, bunch of times,
Right.
and I
They never saw the fibroids.
I
Mm.
know I know too many unanswered questions, and it's one thing to have to deal with the loss, but then it's the negligence, man, that go hand in hand with all of that too. So it's like,
Right.
you know, like it's weird what we all choose to process, man, at first, because it's like you want justice, right? But then you have to, oh, well, let's, before we even get to that part, right? Let's talk about the part in after you deal with the loss, the preparations, man, that come after that, right? So after we woke up, right, uh, from that night, it was it was bittersweet because I mean, you know, we both talked to him even though he's no longer there, and it's weird because it's like when you see a fetus, right, and like you're because stuff still didn't fully form, so you can still, his eyes wasn't like fully open and stuff like that. Um, and his fingers, all of that was fully formed, but it, it's unique to be able to see this and see like, okay, well, he was in the middle of this stage and growing and stuff like that. And so, he went from being warm, and then when we woke up, of course he was cold. And that that's something. And so you put that out of your mind because you're creating this illusion, man, as if it's not what it is. to give you some level of peace, man, in order to be able to process it. And so the nurses come in. It was probably about 10 in the morning, and they was like, "Look, we understand what's going on. So, but we need to know what you all are prepared to do. Like, do you all, like want to bury him or cremate him?" And so it's like the thought process is like we're still dealing with the fact that
He's
we even
gone.
became parents and that he's gone, and this
Right.
part now has to be discussed. And they was like, okay, so out of respect for y'all, we'll give y'all like 15 more minutes, and then you have to make a decision. And so I was like, okay. Um, so of course, man, me being who I am, man, I had to internalize all of that because I'm seeing her break down, but it's not about me in that moment. It's like, okay, well, let me give her the reassurance, let me calm her down, and let me talk her through it, so we can have a game plan. And so I'm like, okay, let's just take this moment, for what it is, because he had on like a little hat, and he had like a little scarf, and he had on like a little diaper, and he was wrapped up in a little blanket and stuff like that. And um, so he was like, okay. So 15 minutes went by like that. And so, they came back and they was like, okay, so we have to take them. And so I was like, okay, okay. So then, I watched her, break down, and I was like, is there anything that of his that you want to keep? And, she was like, I want to keep it all. And she was like, well, I want him to keep his blanket because, I want him to be able to stay warm and stuff like that. And I was like, I got you. I got you. And so we kept his scarf and his little hat. And he did have on some socks too. He did have on some socks, so we let him keep the socks on. And so after that, we had to go ahead and sign the birth certificate and then the death certificate, and it's like, okay, so now we have to immediately we have to figure out what's going on because they was releasing her like shortly after that. They was like okay, so it's like around 10:30. So
Uh,
we're getting the papers to discharge you right now, and I'm looking like I was like, not wasting any time, huh, y'all? I was like, okay.
wow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it was like that. And so again, I had to internalize all of that because I can't I,
Yeah.
I
You
can't
can't get her upset.
yeah,
Yeah, you gotta
yeah,
remain calm. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
She's
So then it
dealing with
was
enough. Yeah.
yep, yep. And so all of this is a surreal moment. And even though, you had this all transition from one day to the next, for us, this was all like in one like it felt like a day or it felt like just a few hours like time processed a little differently because like you're all over the
Like it
place
stood
like
still.
oh yeah this is like I don't even know what to call it, man, but it was a surreal moment. It was almost like an outer body experience. Just like you'll see this stuff in TV shows and movies all the time, but it hit different when it's you because it's like you don't know what to you don't know what to do. You don't know how to feel. You don't know if you're none of that, right? So as we're getting ready to leave, it's I'm still holding her hand and stuff like that, and it's just like okay. And it was raining, and when we got back to the house, it was like, man, like this is the place, man, where it happened. And it's like now being back here, it just you know it just felt weird. And so I was like, okay, I don't even know what to do now. But immediately it goes into the planning of we got to figure out how we gonna even bury him because again, COVID hit. A lot of us are laid off,
Mm.
so you know, didn't know what to do. Didn't know where the money was gonna come from. Like, unemployment was only taking care of our needs, and you don't get your full check, when you get all of
Right.
that. So, um, I was like, okay, because I have to come up with solutions before I can start to panic. Because I got to be able to. Oh, and they only give you 2 weeks to figure this all out.
Uh,
You have 2 weeks to make something happen. So otherwise, they cremate them and they have them in a box.
mm,
So I was like, no, my son deserved better than that. So I'm like, I'm a find him a place. And so figured out dad had to do like a GoFundMe and stuff like that. And then it was time to actually have the funeral and stuff like that. And so yeah, it was pouring down raining that day. And so I didn't allow myself, man, to really feel anything. So until that day. So when it all happened, I was like, I just told everybody, I was like, y'all, I'll go to the car. I was like, no, I'll be there. And then that's when it finally hit me. And I was like, this is it. Um, this is where I leave you. I mean, I'll come back, but this is where I'm leaving you. I don't want to leave you, but I was like, this wasn't supposed to be your fate. Like you deserve much better than this. And I was like, I don't know what I can do, but daddy will do something. I will figure out why this happened and somebody will pay for this. And so, years later, I still don't have the answers. And so, looking back at that, that changed everything about who it is that I am. Like my personality is even different now. Like I'm still happy. You still find ways, man, to go on, but
right.
it's those moments do creep in. And so I always try to balance out the sadness, man, with well, let's look at the good that happened with it. Like let's look at the cravings that you end up having and the many nights, man, we spent talking to him and stuff like that and feeling his first kicks and his first punches in your stomach and and those get you through the moment. But then you look at it like there's supposed to be more of those moments. And then, you have the conversations on, well, how big would he be now? What would he be doing? How would he look? What would he be into? And so
Right.
that's pretty much where I'm at now.
Did you try to do something to celebrate like his birthday or anything? Do you like light a candle? Did you release balloons? Plan a treat? Did you do something in remembrance of him? Or do you do anything in remembrance of him
Oh
on the
yeah,
day before?
oh yeah, absolutely. Because technically his birthday, man, is because he was born on May 8th, and I believe it was at 5:15 p.m. And that ring that you see me wear, I mean, if you ever paid attention to it, that ring is to commemorate him. So it has his date of birth on there. I don't have it on me now, but yeah, so I wear it every single day. Um, we're gonna go see him again, but normally, like, I'll write something and I'll leave it there, or I'll leave like some flowers and like I have like a little thing of his. Hold on, let me show you something.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So, yep. So I want to show you this. So this is a thing that my girl got made for me.
I
It
can't
says
really.
not. No, I got you. So it says not just a dad of an angel, and this is me.
Oh, that's
This is me
nice.
holding them. And so we gotta. got a nice little shrine of everything. His feet prints and like a case, man, with all his stuff in it, and it's got the hat, and the little scarf and stuff
Scar.
like that. Yep, and it's got the pregnancy test in there, when we first found out, and any of the stuffed animals, man, that I bought him, I didn't want to just leave it there because I knew it was going to, be weather beaten, so I decided to keep it. But I normally always update him with what's going on, in mommy and daddy's life as of right now, and how we are, and how we miss them every single day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. When you, uh, so did you, I know you had to concentrate on your girls. So her mom was there. Did you tell anybody else? Were you able to talk, away from her about how you were feeling, or you just stood strong for her?
I think I let in on how I felt, and I would just immediately pivot over to, like, we'll get through this and stuff like that. But it manifested, man, in different ways, over the course of the months and the years and stuff like that with me and stuff like that. And it was just like, you feel so much. Men want to be able to do something about their situations rather than just cry about it.
Right.
But crying is good. Crying is definitely good, man. And like I said, it's not something that I did a lot of. And so we also got to feel productive in the things that we do. And since COVID was going on, there was nothing to do,
Mm.
and it was nothing to look forward to at the time. But, through the grace of God, I mean, I ended up getting a job. I ended up getting a car, better car, and our own place and stuff like that. And things was on the up and up. But then it was like we was embarking on this because we needed to change the scenery. It was just too much going wrong, and then of course, man, you're being isolated from everything. So it's like you you don't have nowhere to go. You're alone with your intrusive thoughts every single day, and there's nothing to take it out on. And it can easily, like, I think I got lost in like video games and stuff like that, or just like lost in my own world because it was so much hurt and it was so much rage and anger because it took me a minute to even accept the idea that I'm having a pandemic baby and
Mm.
that I'm becoming a father even the first time around. So it's like you ain't got a lot of prep time. This baby is growing every single day, whether you ready or not,
Right.
and you have to figure this thing out. Us men, we know that we ain't got no safety net, so we know if we can't make it happen, it ain't gonna get done. You can probably get help, man, from a few relatives here and there, but you know that that's not going to last forever. You know that,
Right.
and now you have to figure out where you're going to put, man, your new family. You got to have all of this, all of this stuff figured out, right? But again, of course, we're in the pandemic, so it's not a lot of things going on, man, to even give me that sense of accomplishment because you got to feel successful in something.
Right.
So you had all of that stuff coming, and I was just like, oh. And then I even had to internalize that because like I done made this family, I got to take care of them. So that was a struggle in itself. So then you're dealing with the aftermath of losing a big part of this family now. And so now everything that you just spent the last 5.5 months, man, planning, now that's done,
Wow.
but you still, life still goes on. And that's the harsh truth. Like, no matter what the obstacle is. You still have to figure out a way to still navigate and still make this thing happen.
Right.
And when you finally get that moment to break down and stuff like that, and to realize, man, that you know, like it's something, because it's like no matter how hard you cry and you scream about it, it's not changing. You know what happened. You don't have
Right.
no answers over it, and you you have to just accept it,
Mm.
and you have to just you have to let it out. And you have to say, like, that short amount of time that I had with you was everything, and if I would have known that, I would have appreciated it a lot more,
Mm-hmm.
and that's given new meaning to the whole, you know, uh, you know, time is a precious gift and stuff like that. And ironically, not knowing when that time for all of us is going to be up kind of keeps us, man, from fully living life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, now that I understand that, now everything that I do, I have to enjoy it that much more. And I am scared to try again, but I ain't getting no younger either. So I do want to try. I want to try soon. I want to try soon.
Okay.
And
What did she say?
oh, she's all already on board for it. So you
Oh,
know,
okay.
yeah,
I had 4 miscarriages. This happened with a couple of different women. Now I'm looking at it now. Is it my fault?
Yeah.
I know I'm a man, but it does challenge your manhood in that way, because you don't have a real answer for something that you probably can't get an answer to.
Now, did you already have like his clothes and stuff? Had you already had a baby bed or little? Had you set it up to get? Were you buying stuff already prior to?
we had a ton of clothes and diapers and stuff like that. We didn't get the crib yet, but
Okay.
but what I was gonna do is that my family and her family, man, did a tradition, right? So there's this crib that my cousin first had, right? Is my older cousin. He was the first one that got it. Then it was passed down to me. Then it was passed on to my other cousin. Then it was passed down to my sister, and now it's passed down to my niece, her child. So I
Okay.
was like, this is a really old crib, man, but it's an heirloom pretty much, man. Like this
Right.
this thing got some years over it. And so she don't have a crib, but she got like this little kid rocking chair and stuff like that that's been passed down and stuff like that. And so I was like, you know, they probably gonna sleep in this, man, for about a good week, but they gonna sleep in something better. But just to say, like, hey, you slept in the heirloom that daddy,
Right.
that slept in, or mommy that sat in. But yeah, we end up having to give all of them clothes away. I mean, we didn't have to necessarily keep that, um, because I didn't really have no attachment to the clothes that he wasn't in, but
Right.
the clothes that he was in the hospital, hold a significant value, man, to us. But yeah, all of the diapers and stuff, we gave those away, man, to parents, man, who actually needed them and stuff like that. But anything that we bought him, we kept.
Wow.
So yeah,
Wow. So you were able. You told. Well, your mom was there. Who else did you tell? What happened? Her side of the family.
yeah, her
No.
side of the family knew. They all knew. They all knew, and my whole family knew. Um, she was more open to talking. I wasn't, you know, because anything what I said, I don't know. I ain't necessarily the most open person, man. When I'm going through something.
Right.
Um, I mean, I want to say that a lot of us dudes tend to shut down a little bit because it's like, what good is his words going to do? And I don't know how to articulate, man, my feelings in this moment. I'm like, I don't feel good about it, but I also didn't want to snap on anybody either. So it was like, this is just what it is, man. And it's like, you have to first process everything else. So then it's like, the things that could have prevented all of that, like that was unanswered, and I've never fully dealt with that. The the thing of us only being able to hold him, what, less than 24 hours. And it was even less than that for me, when I finally made it there.
I got there, yeah.
Yeah. So then there's that. Then there's the whole, I had to figure out, like I said, you have 2 weeks, man, to figure out, like, if you want to bury your loved one or cremate them. You got to pick out the casket. You got to find the burial plot. You got to pay for that. You got to pay for the headstone.
Wow.
And it's a lot, man. And you don't have enough time, man, to grieve the way how you need to. You ain't even got enough time to think. You have
Mhm.
to immediately go into business mode. Like, I got to figure this out, which was
Wow.
my whole thought process, man, is in the beginning, because it was like, you got the pandemic going on. You got the fact that I couldn't see or be there with her in person because of the whole, quarantine type thing, which didn't make any sense because I'm like, the second that you release her, she's going back to me. So
Right.
try to make that make sense.
Right.
So, um, but I mean, it was policy. So it's like, it doesn't matter how you feel about it, it's policy. So
Right.
So you had to deal with all of that. Then you had to coddle and comfort her, man, and stuff like that. Then, of course, man, you got people that say all of the wrong things,
I was gonna
you
ask you
know,
about your support for you. I mean, do they
man,
tell you stuff like, well, God knew and it's just not your time and stupid stuff like that, and
that
so
the
that'll
the
make you want
most
to shut down and stay away from
the
them?
most insulting thing that I heard come from a relative, man, was that you can have another.
Oh wow.
I was like, you need to stay away from me. I said it just like that. And it took I didn't, you know what? Because all of this happened in 2020. It took like until last year for me to see that cousin again and for me to finally let that go.
Wow.
Yeah, like it was some dark thoughts, man, definitely crept in. I ain't gonna say online, but yeah, I was like, the good Lord was with you that day. You know.
So I know you always talk about your dad. Did you share your feelings with him, or you just couldn't share them with anybody but your girl?
So dad, hmm, dad was a great support system. Dad was not a man of many words, but I can understand why. You know, I didn't always understand it from his point of view until you get older, until you get placed into certain things. So I was like, because I didn't know what to say, neither did he. But he was there for me the way how I needed, and he would listen to me, when I say talk about it and stuff like that. And he would hug me and stuff. And it wouldn't be a lot of words, but I don't really think that it can be a lot of words. Like, it was nothing that you could say to me back then. It's either everything would have been the wrong thing to say, or some stuff you cannot form the words. It's a feeling, and it's a
Mhm.
feeling that you got to go through, not necessarily alone, but we all have our own timetable for healing and grieving and stuff like that, and it's going to look different in all of us. And
Right.
the grieving process, man, can last a lot longer. That's something I didn't know, is that for some people it's a lifetime. It's a lifetime. um, I can look back at it and I can say like, I'm glad out of all of the people that he could have been born to, he was born to us. Because some people don't even have the ability, man, to have kids.
Right.
So technically, I mean, we do have that ability, but it's a I don't know. It's different in all of us. I mean, it's some people can cry and stuff like that, and get it out that way, and some people are more open to talking about it and stuff like that. Yeah, I wasn't either one of those.
Did you? You said you wrote some stuff down. Did you write about it? You know, you said you write something when you go to see him. But did you,
So
when you were going through, were you like putting pen to paper at the
nah,
time, or were you just
nah,
trying to figure it out in your head?
nah. I knew exactly what I wanted to say, and I never talked about the bad parts to him. So when I would go out there, because me and her, we work two different jobs and we have two different off days and schedules, right?
Mhm.
So on the days that I wasn't doing anything, I would just go out there and I'd be like, "Hey, man, uh, I got an update for you." And so I would tell him, what's currently going on with me and stuff like that. And I'll just be talking to him. I can't say how long I was there. I want to say maybe it was like an hour, sometimes less, maybe sometimes more. But I was just, I will write the stuff down, right, on what I would
Mhm.
want to say to him. But then I will always go off script with it. So I'll be like, well, uh, I'm like, Daddy was never one to ever follow rules. I'm like, so let me just tell you, man, what's going on, currently with me and how I'm feeling. And so I would tell him that, and I'm like, I hope that this reaches you. And I was like, God, don't let me just be talking to myself in thin air. Like, let me know that he's hearing me. And then I'm gonna tell you something unique happened. So I seen a bunch of dragonflies that was there, right? And so I can't say how often you may see those, but it's very rare for me to ever see them, and it actually means something. My girl
Okay.
looked it up. I forgot what it meant, but it's we viewed it as a way for him to communicate, to at least let us know that he's there. And so
Okay.
every now and again, I'll catch some randomly just there. Like when I was driving at the job not too long ago, it was just a bunch of them, man, surrounding the car as I'm driving. I'm like, son, is that you? Is that you? You trying to eavesdrop on me? I was like, yes, I'm doing okay. And so that's
Wow.
how I choose to view that, or that's how we choose to view it. So,
Has she had any experience with them as well?
oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, her's been not just in the dragonfly form, but she's had dreams. Me, I haven't had any dreams about them, but I'll often ask myself, I'm like, man, I wonder who he would have took after, because like kids, they always look like one parent starting off, but then they morph into the other parent as they get older. And I was like, well, you favored me a lot. I'm like, so that means you would have morphed into your mom later on. But I was like, I wonder whose personality you would have got, because
Right. Yeah.
I'm more, outgoing and boisterous and stuff like that, and she's the more docile, quiet one and stuff like that. I was like, you would have been well rounded. I'm like, you wouldn't have been no pushover, but you would at
Right.
least learn how to communicate your feelings a lot better than what I was able to do.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Wow. Yeah. Did she try to blame herself for what happened and you had to correct her?
it's yeah, that definitely happens, and I mean it affects her, man, very often. So like, when we go through the whole Mother's and Father's Day thing, I keep forgetting, man, that we are a part of that,
Right.
but it don't feel like it because we don't have them there. So
Right.
it's like that day it's always bittersweet, right? It's not more bitter than it is sweet, and it's not more sweet than it is bitter. It's right there in the middle. And
Right.
so you know. But yeah, she comes up, man, with her own theories, and she looks up stuff and the mortality rate and like what could have been going on and what could have aided in that. And I mean, we come up, man, with almost everything under the sun, but we don't
Mm,
have nothing to substantiate what actually happened.
right.
We have theories. That's about as far as those go. So,
But you somehow get past trying to figure out what happened and
yep. And
just
it is
being
a
grateful that it did, right?
yeah, and it is a daily thing. It's not
Mm,
something that you battle once a week, once a month,
right,
once every couple months, once every year. It's every single day.
right,
Every day you deal with it.
right.
It's not a single day that goes by. And so, and I'm assuming that it's probably going to be like that, man, for the rest of our lives because I can't say if I don't think I've ever had like any legit pregnancy scares and stuff like that, man. And, I went from that to, being a full blown dad and stuff like that. And it's still surreal. It's still surreal to even say that out loud, that I was a dad, you know. And the beauty about it is that even though he's no longer here, I know who he is with. He's with the creator, he's with Christ. And so he's with every single last one of our loved ones, man, who's up there playing around in heaven, probably having some Chick-fil-A and watching their favorite TV shows or something like that. So I look at it like, you know, he got to be living it up, because that's what I would want. Like that's what I strongly believe. So um, I'm like, hopefully Daddy can isn't that loud? Hopefully Daddy can get his life correct. That way, when it is time for me to make that transition, that I can greet you right there at the gates. But you will get some brothers and sisters. I did make him
All
that promise. So
right. Did you tell him that? Yeah.
I told him that. I was like, you won't be the only one. And I
So,
was like,
unfortunately, did this traumatic experience make you and your girl closer? Would you say
it
even closer than you were?
it had the opposite effect for the longest time because we became different people after that. Like
Mm,
yeah, but eventually it brought us closer together and stuff like that because who we was before, that's no longer who we are now. So we became different people. So we had to learn how to we had to kind of like get to read know each other and stuff like that. It's like, when we look at each other, this is the same body, this is the same voice box, the same eyes, the same face, the same build. But everything internally is different about this person now. The way how the
mm,
gears turn, all of that's different. My whole outlook on life is different, man. How I process certain things, that's different. I still have the same likes and the dislikes, but I didn't feel the same. I mean, and this is both a good and a bad thing. And the same thing, man, for her. And so
right,
you have to get to re-know each other all over again. And that can be an ugly process. It was a lot of those days and nights. And the thing about grief is that it can strike you out of nowhere. You will have those moments. You'll
right,
see something, you'll have that time skip, man, where you go right back to that moment, or you'll smell something and it reminds you of what it is that you was going through in that moment. And you got to learn how to figure out, man, like, okay, well, what do I do now and stuff. Like now you got to find a new normal. So
right,
that is the part where, some people don't know how to say it like that per se, but you
right.
you end up discovering this on your own, and it takes a long time. And like I said, we're still getting into the swing of things. But yeah, we are good, and we are closer than ever.
That's good.
And yep, but it is a daily thing though.
How did you guys meet?
So ironically, right? Um, uh, her and her entire family are musical, so
Okay.
they're all into like playing instruments and singing.
Mm.
So her brother, who's now passed away, that was hard too. He and a good mutual friend of ours, they did a song together. She was featured on there, and I remember I went over there one day, and I heard the song, and I was like, well, damn. I'm like, who is this? And so he was like, oh, this is such and such sister. I was like, I don't care who she is. I was like, I got to meet her. And so I looked at him. I was like, do you, like, you don't mind, do you? He was like, no. He was like, I'll give you her Facebook. I'm like, just look her up and, just shoot your shot basically. And after that, that was it. We started off as friends and stuff like that. One thing led to another, and it was just like ongoing. Like she complimented me because I can have a radical personality, and she was the polar opposite, and that fascinated me because every other girl I've ever known was very argumentative, man, but not this one, and this intrigued me, and I don't know what it is about you, but you ain't getting scared off so easily. I like you. And so after that, I'll never forget it. She was like, because I was very like when I get hurt, like I tend to shut down, right? So I didn't want another relationship, but she was like, look, why don't you try it like this? Let's try it out, see how you like it, and if it don't goes how you want it to, we can just be friends. And I looked at her and I laughed and I said, so you like lying to yourself, huh? I was like, it ain't gonna happen like that. And so she was like, well, what do you got to lose? Well played. And we just went after, I want to say like in 2014, still together to this day. So
Wow.
I guess I didn't get tired of her.
In
At least
10
not
years?
10 years. Yep. I think we were
10 years.
friends. I think we were friends for at least four before we made it official.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah.
Wow.
10 long years, man, and I am a very difficult person to deal with. But somehow,
But you
man, she
changing.
man. Yeah, yeah, every day.
You changing.
Yeah.
You couldn't have been too difficult because she stayed with you all this time, man.
Man, nah, she might just be built different. Cause I don't know, like I don't think I could deal with me. So, and that's the uncomfortable truth that we gotta have sometime, man. Like I can be pretty impossible sometimes.
Well, ask
Or
her one day, what is it that makes you stay with me, other than the fact you love me?
maybe she crazy. Maybe we all got a little crazy in us. Cause maybe it ain't no good
we
rhyme or
all,
reason to
well,
it.
I can agree. We all do have a
Yeah.
little crazy. Some of them just have more than others. We're all a little crazy.
So she might be insane. So that
Uh,
that that might be it.
I don't think that's it.
I don't know. I wouldn't have dealt with me. So I wouldn't have dealt
you
with me at all, man. I'd have been right out the door.
you got jokes.
Oh
So,
man.
in your grieving, did you ever think about going to seek professional help, or did you just turn your faith, you know, to the God that you believe in? Did you just count on your faith to get you through this? And
I lost my
that,
faith.
you
I lost
lost
my.
it,
Oh yeah, I absolutely lost it. Um, I mean, clearly I got it back now,
right?
um, but yeah, no, it was too much. It was too much going on right around that time, and I think I think I got to the point where I was just numb. I was just
Mm,
numb to it. Not that I was incapable of feeling, but I didn't want to care anymore. See, when you care, that's when the hurt kicks in.
hurt. Yeah,
Yeah,
it hurts.
it's always when you care.
So you became indifferent. One way or the other didn't make you a difference, huh?
Yeah, I didn't want to care no more. I didn't want to care
Right.
about consequences. I didn't want to care about nothing. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to care about anything. And so, um, eventually, when things did start to turn around, you know, I did end up seeking help about it, and so it was different. It was different. Like what the therapist man does is you tell them, you give them a broad overview and stuff like that, and then you talk about whatever you want to talk about, and then after that, they'd be like, okay, well, why don't we start here, if you don't mind, and
Okay.
then you start to build up on it. Then you start realizing that things always derive from something else completely different, because then you end up
Yes.
starting to learn about your responses to everything,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then it's okay to embrace more than just one emotion. Like I'm gonna tell you what she did, and I ain't gonna be long-winded with this one. i
It's
remember
okay.
I remember she was like we was talking about because it was this one day where I was mad about something, and she immediately sensed it. So she was like, "Okay, tell me how you feel." So I did. She was like, "But don't use anger, don't use dislike, or," and it was like a couple other keywords that I will always use. She's like, "Don't
Mm-hmm.
use any of these words."
Okay.
I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Well, damn, you don't want me to say nothing then." And so, so So she was like, I was like, well, I'm disappointed. I was like, I'm hurt. I'm like, I feel lost. So then I started using other words, and
Mm-hmm.
then because I used to always feel like weaknesses, man, or I'm sorry, that feelings was a weakness. And showing
Oh,
emotion,
okay.
man. Oh yeah, and all of that derives from something. And
Mm-hmm.
so the more you start to unravel it, the more you start to understand everything, and then you can allow yourself, man, to feel it and to embrace it rather than just suppress it, man, and try to hide behind something else. Because eventually, whatever you feel, it's gonna come out. You
Right.
don't know how it's gonna come out, but it's gonna come out. So yeah. Now, I haven't done it in a minute, um, because life end up life, and I end up going through like a ton of different moves before I end up moving here. But
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I said I was gonna pick that back up, but the things that I did learn from her, was just basically to embrace how I felt, to actually write it down, to
Mm-hmm.
learn what your triggers are and and to be able to navigate around that. That way you can successfully prevent any unnecessary outbursts, and you can know how to disengage and how to center yourself and all of that other type of stuff. And then on top of that, right,
Yeah.
where my faith kind of kicked back in was, I'm like, well, considering how the world is, I'm like, it could have been a lot worse.
Yes.
And when you start to look at that, you start to look at everything because you're only focused on what's going wrong, right? This is where the
Right.
glass is half empty, half full perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But if you stop to think about only what's going wrong, and you start focusing on everything that went right and what's going right,
Yeah.
then you get a different perspective, and then you start feeling different. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like now I'm seeing things just a little differently. I don't want to accept it, but at least I'm seeing it from a different perspective. But
Okay.
how you see things end up becoming a part of your reality. And so, with that being said, it's like I started to be grateful for the life that I still have, grateful
Okay.
that we still have each other, and that things could have been significantly worse. And then you're reminded about that, man, through the daily news and stuff like that. And you
Mm-hmm.
see how many people, man, lose whole families and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And how do you recover from that? You know,
Yeah.
um, so things can always be a lot worse, and because they wasn't, That's letting me know about God's mercy, man, and his love, man, and his promise to us. And so I look at that, and then I look at the opportunities that me and her still have. We still have a chance, because even though it's cliche, but life goes on.
Right.
Life goes on. No matter how ugly this thing becomes, this thing is still going on. It don't slow down. It don't stop for nobody. It keeps going.
Uh,
And you have to learn how to navigate through it, but you don't have to be alone.
right.
And a lot of times when you're going through that, especially for the man, you feel alone, but you're
Yeah.
not alone. You're never alone.
Yeah. It's a good lesson. That's a good
Yeah.
lesson.
It's the I mean, it took years for me to learn it or for me to accept it, but I mean, hey, here we are.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, sir, so much. I appreciate. So, what
thank you.
advice would you give to a dad who experienced a miscarriage? Like, I mean, you gave out a whole lot, but what's one of the things you know that really helped you as you look back? You know, I know supporting your spouse or your partner is one. Do you think speaking your feelings or letting your feelings come out or just not suppressing them? Do you think writing about it? What do you think would really help him because he's got to help her, you know, but he needs help too. So just name two or three things you think would really help that really helped you.
Me being able to give this advice to somebody else, knowing what I know now, it would be pretty much what you just said, but just to elaborate on it, is to know that there is no right or wrong way of expressing yourself or to withhold something back because you're trying to protect somebody else. Y'all are both in this equally.
Mhm.
So just like how you give her the full comfort of allowing herself to feel whatever she needs to feel and to be able to show that and express it at any given notice, you
Mhm.
have that same right as well. You don't have to deny yourself that because that's not the norm, or you may not be able to articulate it or to be able to show it the exact same way that she would show it, but don't allow yourself to suppress it because when you suppress it, you're only making things worse. And maybe not for anybody else, but for you. You matter. You have to know
Right.
that you matter. Um, and to and man, you got to keep Christ involved. You got to take it all to Him, man. That's why He died on that cross, man. Like you got to get that stuff up to Him. It's certain stuff that we're not meant to carry as humans. I mean, that's
Right.
why high blood pressure, strokes, seizures, and all of this other illnesses, man, that happens a lot because your vessel is not equipped to handle that. You're not designed to carry that burden, but we know somebody who does.
Right.
And you have to accept the help where you can get it. Always express, man, how you feel no matter what, and be honest about your feelings in real time. Don't don't put it off. If somebody, especially if somebody asks, well, what's the matter? And you say nothing and you know something, express yourself at all times. I mean, give a disclaimer, like, if you are feeling, anger and stuff with it, that way they're not blindsided by it. But,
Right.
say like, hey, I'm angry. I don't know how this is going to come out, but I'm letting you know. And then they
Right.
can either choose like, okay, I'm gonna either give you your moment or I'm here for it. You know, but then just navigate it, man, the best way that you can. If writing helps, do it. If talking about it helps, do it. Don't suppress or put off anything tomorrow what you can do right there in that moment today. and know that it ain't no quick fix to this stuff. Like eventually you will heal from it. That's the beauty of it. You don't know when, but you will heal from it. And you got to understand that words have power. So if you say that you're never going to heal from it or it's never going to get better, guess what? That might end up being your reality. But if you
Right.
say that everything will get better, I will get over this, I'm stronger than this, and eventually like I'll be back to myself, that's what it's going to be. But you will heal.
Right.
And just be honest with yourself. That's the one person that guys lie to the most. We lie to ourselves the most. So don't lie to yourself. Be honest
I like
about your feelings and work through them in real time.
it. I like that. I like that very much, sir. And
Thank
there
you.
is a website called postpartum.net, and it's geared towards supporting anyone who experienced the loss and the grief in pregnancy or postpartum. So the website lists helpful resources like the March of Dimes and the Miscarriage for Men website, which allows a person to register online and become a part of the Miscarriage for Men support group. So we'll try to put that up.
Please.
On the site for that. And thank you, Steve. Man, you've given a lot of information because we never. I don't know anybody that has talked to a man or been supportive of tried to be supportive of a man after his spouse or partner goes through a miscarriage. We all focus on her, and you guys kind of
Yeah.
get swept to the side, and that's unfortunate because like you said, you're as much a part of the life of that child as she is, and you have the right to grieve and cry and be angry and all of the just like the mom did. So thank you for
Sometimes we don't
sharing.
we don't know how to do it, but yeah.
Right, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you say, you didn't want to appear to be weak, and you thought that there was a right way to express sorrow, I guess, as a man, but the only way to do it is to do it and not
Yeah.
hold it in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds very straightforward, man, but that's what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha. All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching Real Dad Speak with our guest Stephen Henry telling us about the experience of miscarriage from a male's point of view. He's come out on the other side. Every day is still a challenge, but he's better for
Yes.
it and he's growing and learning. And he and his partner plan to try again.
Yes.
So,
Yes, we will, man. And I can't
so
I can't even fathom what that's gonna be like. Like I want to say for the same way on how his passing had changed me.
mhm,
I'm assuming that the exact same thing is gonna happen when I get to hold my kid once more,
okay.
and I get to just see everything firsthand, and they get to annoy me, and I'm gonna be right there. I'm like, we're gonna annoy each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I, I
Yeah.
I pray that this happens. I
Oh
pray
yeah.
that it happens because you are one excited man when it comes to talking about your future child. So
Oh yeah.
God bless you, and I'm hoping that I'm there to see it when it happens
Oh,
too.
you will be. I'm gonna keep you in the loop. I'm gonna keep you in
All
the
right.
loop, man. And we're gonna update the people.
Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. You got to come back on and show pictures and
I'm gonna be
yeah.
there for all
Oh,
of it. All of it.
yes. Yes. Yes.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
looking forward. All
Hey,
right.
thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Real Dad Speaks comes out every other Tuesday on Spotify and YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe and comment. We love to hear your comments. All right.
Facts.
Take care.
All right. Have a good one.